What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Let Me Be Frank. Welcome back to the show. I'm glad you're here. I hope you had a good week. I hope everything you wanted came true. And if it didn't, let's reload and try again. Once again, I want to thank you for giving me your most precious commodity. Ladies and gentlemen, we all know that that is your time. Thank you for giving me a listen. Go ahead and comment, follow, subscribe, whatever you're on. Click bells, all that stuff so you know every single time a new episode comes out. I know I'm usually excited about most shows. This one is probably going to be one of my favorite. So, quick disclaimer, we are doing a movie that is currently in theaters. Today we're talking about Speak No Evil. Now, I need you to pay attention to this part very closely. If you do not want to be spoiled, back out of this, go into the description. I will leave the exact timestamp of when I am done talking about this movie. Because, yes, I'm going to spoil it, the entire thing from the opening scene to right before the credits. Because there is no after credit stuff. Trust me, I checked. Go ahead, back out, and I will see you for our next feature. Because normally we do one pretty good movie, decent to good, and then we have a main event. But today we have a double main event. The second movie we're going to be reviewing today is 2003's High Tension. If you never heard of it, that's fine. It was advertised very briefly here in the US. I remember seeing like a couple commercials and then it kind of disappeared. It is a French film. And when I was living in New York still, and I was going through the $5 bin at Walmart, because that's unfortunately where I worked at the time, I came across the movie again. And I remember certain images and I remembered how bad I wanted to see it. And it was also only $5. So what the hell? I can toss $5. And this movie, High Tension, is brutal. This was a very intense, both watching Speak No Evil and watching High Tension. I had to watch some goddamn kitten videos when I was done. So, ladies and gentlemen, without any further interruption, like I said, we're starting with Speak No Evil. And yes, I'm spoiling the whole thing, beginning to end, plot twist, all that. If you are still here, thank you. And I hope you enjoy this movie. And I still encourage you to go see it. Whether it's in theaters, I also believe if you have Amazon, you can rent it for like probably like $20 to $24. If you want to wait until it comes out on streaming, you'll probably forget some of the details I'm about to give away anyway. But this movie is worth a watch. The movie starts with a family driving down a dark road. All you see are heads of the parents, but a child's face in the rearview mirror. The next morning, we meet a family sitting poolside. The daughter, Agnes, wants her mom to join her in the pool. Mom instantly tells her to use her indoor voice. Mind you, she ain't talking that loud. We're outside at a fucking pool. Agnes' parents, Ben and Louise, seem like they don't really have a lot of fun. Soon, a guy walks up to Ben to ask him if they're using their little pool lounge chair because there's an empty one sitting next to him. Ben says no, and then the stranger drags the chair away, breaking the silence of the pool area. So imagine this stuffy area with all these people kind of sitting around murmuring to each other, and then the one loud ass family that shows up, that was them. Ben seems kind of intrigued by this family. The strange man and his wife chug a couple beers before the guy cannonballs into the pool. Ben asks Louise if she wanted a beer, and she looks at her watch, then says, it's kind of early. She offers him to have one anyway, but he refuses because she doesn't want to have one. Listen, y'all, when I'm on vacation, it's 5 o'clock all the time. Okay. The moment I get up, it's mimosas. Afternoon, it's probably a couple shots or maybe a Jack and Coke. And then later on that night, we're going to really, those are just liver warm ups. Later on that night, we're going to go ahead and get it cracking. Later on, the family is walking around and Agnes realizes she lost her support bunny. And no, I am not joking. It is a teddy bear. And that's a bunny. I believe they call it Hoppity or something, and she keeps it because she has high anxiety, which is fine. Her dad is very aggravated by her dependence on the bunny. He keeps referencing that she's 12 years old and it's time to get over it. Obviously, he's never dealt with anything like that, so I can give her a little bit. After walking for a while, he heads back to the family because he goes to look for it. After a while, he walks around, he doesn't find it. After searching for the bunny, he comes back and he runs into his family, his daughter Agnes, wife Louise, and they're talking to three other people: Patrick or Patty, Sierra, and Aunt, who's a little boy. Patty asks them to come to lunch with them. Lunch goes good, just a couple of awkward moments when Sierra offers Agnes some dessert and Louise says she's already had her ice cream for the day, and Patty kind of a snide remark like, "Oh, you two are rough," kind of critiquing her parenting for not letting her daughter have another treat. But they quickly get back on the same page. The week is over, so they didn't spend too much time with the family, but the time that they did spend, they appeared to have clicked very well. The week is over, and Agnes, Louise, and Ben go back home to London. Ben still makes a big deal about Hoppity, while Luis and Ben talk in the living room. Luis gives Ben a postcard with a message on the back from Patty, inviting them to come spend the weekend at their home. Luis is slightly against it, but she makes an effort when she sees that Ben is a bit upset about her not wanting to go. They take a long drive to visit their quote unquote friends, and when they get there, they are shown around the house. They get there at night, so it's about time to have dinner. While the kids sit in a different room watching TV, Patty and Sierra bring out their golden goose. They killed the goose and cooked it for them in like honor of their friend. They made a big deal about going out and picking out their best goose because they wanted to make a good impression, yada yada yada. They killed the goose to serve to Ben and Louise, forgetting that Louise is a vegetarian. Patty all but shoves the meat into her mouth. No diddy. Okay, it's not that he cut a piece of the goose and without really thinking, kind of like force fed it to her. And instead of her saying, "Hey, remember I'm a vegetarian," she just kind of goes with it to keep the peace. Ben takes out the trash, and while he's out there, Ant, the little kid, he can't talk. Patty and Sierra told Ben and Louise that Ant can't speak because he was born with a condition that made his tongue too small, so he has a lot of trouble communicating. So Ben takes out the trash, and while he's out there, he's approached by Ant, and he starts making these weird noises, showing Ben his short tongue. Patty talks to everyone about the evils of technology, which he isn't completely wrong. He says people have become more anxious and stressed due to like social media and stuff like that, which has been proven, but he's really on a soapbox about it. Now it's bedtime. Luis and Ben are setting up their bed for the night when the door opens. It's Agnes. She says she can't sleep. Ben goes to get her app or something to help her sleep, but Luis invites her into the bed with them, which doesn't really make Ben too happy because I'm assuming he was hoping to get him a little marital intercourse, but it ain't happening with her in the bed. The next morning, they have a good hike. They do kind of like a quick montage of them going different places until they settle in and we see a quick flash of Patty's anger. Angus finds a rope swing that she wants to use, but Aunt is standing in the way. Luis asks him to move, but then Patty comes over and he also asks. When Aunt does not reply, because Aunt doesn't even look up, Patty kind of like gruffly grabs his chest. He's wearing like a jersey, so imagine like a jersey shirt, and he kind of slams his hand against his chest, grabs the shirt, and then pulls him out of the way. Very rough. Like, it's not something I would do to my son. Ben and Luis are alarmed, but Patty explains it away. He kind of charms them, and it's over. Next, they jump off of a big ass rock into a river, and it turns out that Aunt can't swim. They go back to the house, and Luis is ready to leave. She says she has a sore neck and wants to use that as an excuse to leave. So the whole jumping in the river or lake, whatever it was, knowing that Aunt can't swim made her very uncomfortable. When they asked Patty about it while they're in the water, he says that he learned to swim the same way. His dad kind of just threw him in some deep ass water and said, either you're going to drown or you're going to swim. That is not the most effective way to teach someone how to swim, ladies and gentlemen. That's more than likely going to make that person never, ever, ever want to swim, ever. Michael Phelps was not created that way. And then Sierra invites them out to dinner and they agree. What Ben and Louise don't know is that it's for adults only. The babysitter is a refugee from Syria. Luis is concerned, as I guess anybody would be, about this person that we have no idea who they are and if they have any sort of troubled past or anything like that. Watching our kids while we're in a foreign place. Now, I forgot to describe where Patty and Sierra live. They live in fucking nowhere. When I tell you nowhere, I mean nowhere. They said their next neighbor is quite a ways, and I believe it's far. You don't see another house in this movie. Once our family arrives, that is the only home we see. So I wouldn't be surprised if their neighbors were about 8 to 10 miles away. They said, "Oh, we kind of look out for each other." I don't know how, because looking out for each other means that I can at least see your property somehow from my house. So they go to dinner, and Patty continues to get on Luis's bad side when it comes to vegetarian food and life philosophy. They have a quick spat at dinner about, what it means to be vegetarian and whether you could afford it and all that jazz. Meanwhile, the kids are playing hide and seek with the babysitter. Aunt is trying to tell Agnes something by opening a drawer full of watches. So they go into Patty and Sierra's room. Aunt opens up a drawer, and there's like this big box of really nice watches, and there's like 12 or 13 of them. There's a lot of watches there, and he's pointing to the back of one of them, but he can't. I mean, obviously, he can't speak. So she doesn't completely get what he talks about, the point he's trying to get to her. The couples have an awkward talk about sex at dinner. Ben and Luis got some spicy shit going on between them. You're going to have to watch the movie to find out. I'm not going to tell you that. But she makes this comment. So Sierra says that her and Patty, they've been together for a really long time. And she says that they still do it like multiple times a week. And Luis makes a joke that Ben is lucky to get it once a month. That's crazy to say in front of people that you barely know. After they just bragged about how much sex they're having, you go ahead and cut your husband off at the fucking waistline by saying he's lucky. Lucky if he gets it once a month. Now, mind you, by the end of this movie, you're going to understand why Ben probably doesn't deserve to get laid ever again. But we'll get there. Anyway, then Ben and Luis go back home and they have a big argument about that comment, which ties into the past as to why Ben is having big feelings about what was said at dinner. We don't know how long Patty was standing at the door, but when they make up and hug, he is watching them through the glass door. And also, Aunt shows Agnes that he is being abused. His torso is covered in burns and bruises. During the night, Luis goes to check in on Agnes only to discover that she is not in her bed. When she goes to look for her, she finds her sleeping in the bed with Patty and Sierra. Now let's stop right there. I was completely Team Luis during this scene. If I woke up in a stranger's home, some people, mind you, they don't know. They spent a week together in Italy and they've been at these people's house for like maybe a day. So they don't know them all that well. You wake up to go check on your daughter and you see her late. Now, I'm going to describe this. So imagine a bed. Patty is laying on the far left. He is in his drawers, sleeping. Now, laying next to him is his wife, girlfriend. They never really established that. It's Sierra, who's also in her underwear. Sierra is wrapped around Agnes like that is her daughter. Yeah, no, no, no. We ain't doing that shit. We gonna have a talk about it right then and there because that is severely inappropriate. Louise picks her daughter up, rushes out of the room, and then bursts into her room, her and Ben's room, and she starts packing because that's abnormal. They leave immediately, but they leave Hoppity behind. Ben tries to make Agnes forget about it, but Agnes won't let it go. And she begins to scratch herself. And not like in her face, she's like nervously or anxiously scratching the same spot on her forearm because she doesn't have Hoppity. Mind you, for something that she needs so much, she loses it a lot. This remember, this ain't the first time she done misplaced this fucking thing. So I'm like, either you want it and you're gonna hold on to it, or you're gonna forget about it. Okay? So they have to go back. When they do, Patty is awake. Luis walks in on Ben and Patty kinda arguing. Sierra explains that she heard Agnes crying in the middle of the night. Luis didn't wake up, so she was just trying to help. Now, mind you, I don't completely believe him, but Patty, when they're having this argument in the kitchen, Patty doesn't know anything about it because when Luis reveals what she saw, Patty looks at Sierra like, "Bitch, what the fuck? Like, explain now." So I'm assuming he didn't know, but I don't completely believe Patty because something's going on here. Mind you, okay, so if you listen to a past episode of mine about the movie Straw Dogs, I talked a lot about the unease. Even though everybody was being quote unquote nice and friendly, there was always this air of tension throughout the entire film. That's we get that times like nine because of the seclusion. Because Straw Dogs took place in a town with a bunch of people. This is happening off in a place where they're unfamiliar with the surroundings. The tension around every scene is palpable. It's you can feel it through the screen. So when they're having this argument, it's like there's all this uncertainty. You're waiting for something bad to happen and you don't really know what side it's going to come from, but you know that something is not the way it looks. It's an awkward moment, but Sierra gives a sob story and they try to move past it. So they end up staying instead of leaving. Later that day, Aunt and Agnes are painting eggs when Aunt slides a note to Agnes, except she can't read it because it's written almost in gibberish. Sierra starts to make her way over towards them to check on them, and Aunt eats the note quickly. As soon as he sees her comes over, he shoves it in her mouth. Agnes tries to tell her mom about it later on. I don't think Louise fully understood, but she understood enough to know that something is slightly off. Meanwhile, Ben is walking around with his fucking head in the clouds, just being taught man lessons by Patty. I'm pretty sure if he offered to swap wives, Ben would have done that. That's the impression he's giving me. I'm gonna try not to be mean to Ben, but I don't think I'm gonna succeed. Everyone is sitting outside having lunch, and Sierra keeps correcting Agnes at the table until Louise has to tell her to stop telling her daughter what to do, which sparks a bickering back and forth between the adults. Then Ben tries to break the tension by asking the kids, Aunt and Agnes, to show off a dance that they had been working on earlier in the day. As the kids perform, Aunt is a typical kid who doesn't really have great rhythm, but this pisses Patty off to no end. And he gets more and more upset with Aunt until he yells at him and throws something at him. I think it was like an apple or something, and then sends him to his room. Now, this scene is intense as fuck because his very violent side is coming out more and more. And it seems like he's somewhat trying to control it, but his true nature is becoming harder to hide. and it's scaring the shit out of the other people who aren't used to this. Louise is beside herself about the treatment of Aunt, and Ben is also kind of upset. Notice how I said kind of upset. Sierra is holding Patty in her arms like he's the one that needs to be comfort. She's literally holding him, rubbing him, trying to let him know it's gonna be all right when he literally just flipped on this kid because didn't do the chicken dance in a rhythmic fashion like Agnes. It was a very sad scene for kids who go through, actual physical abuse. Patty eventually goes to sleep while everyone else is still outside. Aunt sneaks in the room and steals a set of keys off Patty's belt. He then goes outside with a football to play with Agnes. He slowly leads her away from the family and into a barn where he lifts two large doors into a secret cellar. In this cellar are a lot of other people's property, motherfucking OPP. There are shoes, luggage, garment bags, all sorts of things that these people shouldn't have. Ant then goes and finds a photo album where he shows Agnes pictures of other people's family that have come in contact with Patty and Sierra. Then he reveals that his parents were also killed by the family and that his tongue isn't short, but it was cut out of his mouth. He does all of this by pointing to pictures, and thank God Agnes is not an idiot because it would have been very easy to not put this stuff together, or it could have taken a lot longer. Agnes now has to find a way to be able to tell her parents what's going on without alerting Sierra and Patty. So she devises a plan to get her parents away from them. She fakes having her first period. She kind of goes off to the side, cuts her leg, walks up to her mom, and she thinks that that's what's going on. Meanwhile, Aunt attempts to put the keys back, but Patty's awake. So he walks into the room, so the door's open. Door's like all the way open, and we're sitting kind of on the other side of the bed as Aunt walks in. He sees that the bed is empty, and then the door slams behind him, and Patty is sitting there. A couple of events happen, but he does manage to get the keys back onto Patty's belt before heading back outside. Agnes succeeds at getting her mother alone and is able to tell her what's going on. Now, for the criticism I gave Louise earlier for being a stick in the mud, she does something so rare in these movies. She actually believes her child. Yeah, I know it's a fucking novel idea that your child, who you should trust to tell you the truth, tells you something and you actually believe them. So she actually believes what Agnes tells her. Louise then goes to get Ben and has to get him away from the family. And she tells him, and this fucking goof sits there with a dumbfounded look on his face, like he doesn't know what to do. I told you I'm gonna try to be nice. I don't know how much I'm gonna succeed because we coming up on it right now. They then attempt to escape. So their plan was to act normally and try to get in the car and get out of there because their stuff is still packed from when they tried to leave earlier. When I tell you they looked like they just seen a ghost, like there was no way. Even if Patty and Sierra didn't put together some of the other clues that something was going on, there was no way in hell this family was getting out of here without without them knowing that they knew something they shouldn't know. It was all over their face. They're like clumped together, the three of them, Agnes, Ben, and Luis, and they're moving almost like a unit, like they're attached to each other instead of the natural free moving selves they just were before the bathroom. They almost succeed after a lot of tense moments. And when I mean tense moments, these moments were very, very tense. Then, just as they are about to drive out of the gate, Patty throws Ant into the pond that they just drove around, knowing that he can't swim. Obviously, Ben and Luis go back to try and save him, but end up getting captured. Next, we see all of them tied up in a shed and Patty forces Louise to transfer almost $200,000 from their bank account into his. The family manages to escape with Aunt, and when they get back in the car, they are cut off by Mike, who's the guy who made them dinner, and he begins shooting out their windshield. So, with no other option, the family heads into the house and barricades themselves in. Now, so right now, it's Ben, Louise, Agnes, and Aunt. They go back into the house and they barricade the part of the house that they're in. The kids are as calm as kids would be in that situation. Okay? They're reasonably calm. They're kind of just sitting there waiting for the adults in the room to come up with a plan. Louise is barricading. She's looking around for weapons. And this fucking Ben, he sits down on the couch. And when I tell you he's freaking out like a little old lady that can't find her heart medication, he is beside himself. He cannot pull himself together. His wife has to clap in his face to get him to calm down and to refocus. Now, mind you, this is the fate that they're all looking at. Luis is going to be killed. Ben is going to be killed. Aunt knows he's done. These two people are going to kill him. And Agnes knows that she's about to have her tongue cut out and she's going to be treated like Aunt was, because now they want her, because they don't really like Aunt because he didn't turn out to be the kid that they thought he would be. And instead of him, you know what, we're going to move on because I'm about to go off on Ben. Ben attempts to throw a Molotov cocktail to set a barn on fire to signal for help, but he misses and it lands on Patty's car. Eventually, the car blows up. They hide the kids in the closet and begin looking for weapons to defend themselves. Soon, they hear someone on the roof. Ben goes to deal with the person while Louise stays downstairs to take care of anyone that comes in on that floor. Patty starts to break down the door they barricaded. Louise stabs him in the arm because he kind of sticks his arm through, trying to pull through, and she picks up like this dinner fork, the same fork that he fed her the goose on, and she stabs the fuck out of his arm. Then she locks the basement door because that's where Sierra's coming from. Then she runs upstairs. Patty breaks through and lets Sierra in. As Patty and Sierra search upstairs, they think they hear one of the kids breathing in a bathroom closet. So Patty sneaks in the bathroom, but when he opens the door, it's just the breathing app on Luis's phone. She then pops out of another closet in the room and sprays something in Patty's eyes. I believe it was some form of corrosive. Then Louise, Aunt, and Agnes run out of the bathroom. When they turn the corner, Mike is standing there with a shotgun. He takes a shot, but it was just their reflection in a nearby mirror. He turns to go after them. This is Ben's chance to take him down, and we're going to hold right there. Ben throws one. So Ben has a hammer. He's hiding in a closet. He shoots. Mike shoots at the family. The mirror shatters. He realizes that they're actually behind him. When he turns around, he starts going after them. Now, any other person, once that guy with the gun's back is turned, you're going to step out, right? Because your wife and your daughter are running for their lives. You have the drop on the person with a gun. You're holding a hammer. You are going to swing from California down through Texas up the East Coast, and you're going to bash his fucking brains in. Ben throws one of the bitchiest hammer swings I think I've ever seen in film done by an adult. He is quickly overtaken by Mike and is about to be killed. He's about to have his neck shoved on a piece of glass when his wife takes advantage of the moment, picks up that same hammer, turns it claw side, and hits him so hard in the back of the head that it penetrates his brain and he dies. So she came and saved her husband's life because he ain't got the guts. Sorry, that scene irritated the shit out of me. Then the four of them climb out of a window where there's a ladder leading to the ground. Mike used it earlier to get up to that part of the house. They start climbing down, and Sierra shows up and she takes like half a step out. So, like, half her body is out of the window and she's pointing the shotgun. So, on the ladder, I believe, was Agnes. Next in line was Ben, and then Aunt was closest. So, Sierra is standing out with a gun, pointing it at them. And then Lois, the savior of the family, is hiding on the side of the window where you can't really see her if you're standing out. You would have to turn and look up to see her. When Sierra does, Luis hits her in the face. Sierra then falls face first, slides down the side of the roof, and swan dives into the ground. I'm assuming dying on impact. I guess it would be okay if she laid there and suffered for a little while because she's a piece of shit. So now they have no way down because as Sierra slid down, she also knocked over the ladder, but Ben pulls up Agnes beforehand. Ben gets the bright idea to hang off the side of the house and he falls, fucking up his ankle. Now, at this point in the movie, when he hits the ground, I have a physical reaction. I get extremely annoyed because I'm like, I'm expecting everybody kind of can guess that now you're about to get a Ben versus Patty fight because that makes sense, right? Wife take care of the other two. He's gonna send his family away. He's finally gonna put his big boy pants on when but now he's hobbling around instead of landing on the body or trying to jump into the nearby bushes or on the grass or just falling on his side or doing anything to not land. He jumped like he was jumping in a fucking pool. Oh my God. All right. He places the ladder back on the side of the house and holds it so the rest of the family can come down. Once they are all down, they think that they hear a noise, so Ben sends Agnes to the car to hide. He tells Louise to go, but she doesn't want to. Lucky because she's already saved his ass twice, so I wouldn't send her too far. Turns out it was just a fox, but behind them, Patty has Agnes at gunpoint. They think he's gonna kill Agnes. That is not Patty's plan. He's gonna kill all of them and keep Agnes for himself. But before he can point the gun at them and pull the trigger, Agnes has a syringe that they had earlier in the shed when they were tied up with tranquilizer in it. She stabs Patty and he begins to fade. As he lays on the ground, they start to walk over him to leave him. Ben was going to walk right past them and let this guy live to come after them another day. But Aunt decided that that's not how shit's going to go down. Aunt picks up a brick and bashes Patty's head in and then lets out this psycho primal scream from all the shit he's been through. They get in the car and they begin to drive away. Once again, we see Aunt's face in the rearview mirror and the heads of both adults on either side of the screen. The movie ends the same way it begins. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is See No Evil. This movie was beyond phenomenal. Ben pissed me off greatly, but the rest of the movie is so well done, from atmosphere to setting to once things pick up, everything just feels so chaotic. And yeah, this movie was really good. I highly, highly, highly recommend watching it. And for everyone who decided to skip the first movie because you want to see it for yourself before hearing me talk about it, welcome back. Hope it didn't take you too long to get here. So, our second main event is 2003's High Tension. Now, this movie, graphic. That's the best word I can use to describe it. This movie is brutal. It is bloody. This movie's intense. Very intense. So we ain't gonna waste no time. We're gonna get right up in it. Movie starts with Marie in a hospital wearing a gown. She is speaking French and has scars all over her body and bruises. I'm talking deep scars, like these shits look like. However, she got them, they hurt. Then we go to flashes of her bleeding and running through the woods. After some time, opening credits, she wakes up in the back seat of a car. Her friend Alex is driving. They're on their way to Alex's home on holiday to study. Marie tells Alex about her dream. When Alice asks Marie who was the stalker in this dream, Marie says it felt like she was the one stalking herself. They dismiss it as just a shitty dream. Marie is asking Alex about things to do in the area where her parents live. Alex says there is nothing to do, plus they're going there to study, not to party. During this time, we see a man in a van. His van, it looks like a cleaned up version of the Jeepers Creepers van, just so you can get that visual of what it looks like. While he's inside, we see him getting head. He's making gross sounds and he's being very rough with this poor woman until he finishes. Turns out it's just her head. Yes, he was having oral interaction with just a severed head. Don't worry, y'all. There's a whole lot more coming. Yeah, this is in the beginning of the movie, by the way. The very bad part is he is sitting outside a family's home, which we will discover is Alex's family's home. Alex and Marie drive until they get to a big ass cornfield. Alex plays a joke on Marie by scaring the shit out of her. The ladies finally make it to the house, and Marie gets introduced to everyone: mom, dad, Tom, Alex's little brother, and we can't forget about Hendrix, the dog. Mom and dad don't have names, so they're only going to be referred to as mom and dad. Just in case you are wondering why I didn't mention their name, because they don't actually say their names. And don't worry, we ain't gonna need them. After Alex gives Marie the tour of the house, shows Marie to her room, the family finally settles down for bed. Alex and Marie chit chat a bit more. Alex goes to shower and head off to bed while Marie needs one more cigarette, so she heads outside. While Marie is outside, she can see into Alex's bathroom and sees her naked in the shower, full frontal nudity. Marie heads into the room, puts headphones on, begins to listen to music and masturbate. While she's enjoying herself, we see this van making its way up the very long road. We as the audience knows that things are about to go very, very left. Marie hears an animal inside kind of making noise. She gets up to look out the window. We see that the vehicle looks like it's driving away. So pretty much from here on, it's going to be insanity. This is I know with some of the things I just told you, this is going to be the most calm and normal part of the movie. So this is night one that they get there. We hear the doorbell ring. Oh, before we get into that, once again, this family lives in the middle of nowhere. Now, I understand movies like Poltergeist, Amityville Horror, they happened in neighborhoods where there are houses next door, there are people around, but there always feels like there's some avenue of escape because both families in those movies just took off. They got in their car and they drove away. These movies to me, where they're out in the fuck all of nowhere, frighten me way more than being terrified in a city. Unless it's like the purge. The purge is a different type of fear. But all these movies, these people are just in such isolated areas where there's nothing to do but go around and go fucking crazy. Anyway, I just had to get that out. I ain't moving nowhere that far out. Jesus. We hear the doorbell rings and it's a very annoying sound. Dad jumps out of bed to go see what's wrong. Marie runs up to like this little attic window thing. She looks down at the front of the house as the dad opens the door with an attitude. So with Hendrix by his side, dad opens the door and just looks into this person's eyes. The next thing we see from Marie's perspective is the killer raising his hand and slashes dad's face with something. It looks like a straight razor. Now the music that they use for this is very unsettling. It's not so much music, it's more like a collection of shitty sounds. And there's like this constant heartbeat thing. I don't know if you wouldn't even call it a heartbeat. There's this constant deep bass noise that I would say sounds like someone's heartbeat if, you know, they're going through something and their heartbeat is jacked up, and it plays like through the whole this whole thing that's about to happen. Dad collapses on the ground, trying to get away from the door. The killer reaches in and unlocks the big metal door. Then he walks in and kills Hendrix. The mood right now is very dark. It feels like nothing's going well for however long this is going to last. Dad attempts to crawl up the stairs, but the killer forces his head through the banister poles. You know how you have the banister and then you have the little wooden things going up that holds up the railing? He somehow squeezes his head through there. Then he proceeds to clear off like a gigantic wardrobe. I don't know. I don't really know what it would be called, but the killer pushes it into the dad's head, ripping his head right off his shoulders. This scene is extremely graphic. Then the killer makes his way very slowly up the stairs. Mom and Tom are in the hallway. Mom tells Tom to go back into his room. Mom goes to check on Dad downstairs when she comes to face with this maniac. It cuts away from her to show Marie panicking in her room. All we hear is Mom screaming until the screams suddenly stop. Marie finds a phone but can't access where to plug it in before the assailant makes his way toward her. She cleans up to the room to make it look as though no one is there. Then she hides. The killer enters the room and does a slow search. This scene is very intense. There's no background music, just that heartbeat sound as the killer walks and slowly checks in the bathroom. He's looking in closets. He lifts up the bed, but only like a corner. And she's hiding on like the other side. She's scrunched up under like the foot of the bed. And he picked up the corner of where your head would be, so he didn't see her, which is very lazy in my opinion, and it doesn't seem to describe this killer very well, but we'll see what happens. We don't know where Marie is hiding at. So we don't know where she is because when she goes to hide, they go to the outside of the room and we see everything from his perspective. So we don't even know where she is until she reveals herself. We don't know where she is until she reveals herself. Soon he leaves the room and makes his way to Alex's room. Marie and us, we're forced to listen to Alex be sexually assaulted. It's a very uncomfortable sound. Now, Maria escapes her room and silently makes her way to Alex's parents' room, looking for a phone. It's a cordless phone, so of course the phone's not on the charger. Those of you born in yesteryear like I was, you remember the phone was usually never on the base unless you put it on there to charge it. As Marie looks for the phone, Mom stumbles back into the room. Maria hides in the closet. The killer then walks in behind her, grabs her hair, pulls her head back, and slices her throat open with a straight razor. Now, the sound of Mom trying to breathe is fucking insane. All this stuff is happening in one fluid motion, and the sound of her struggling to breathe is haunting. It's extremely realistic, very disturbing, and this whole time, that same heartbeat noise is playing in the background while Marie is hiding just a few, not even a few feet from where all of this is happening. And the killer has no idea that she's there. Then the killer kneels next to Mom, and all you hear is this like sawing noise and this blood splatter on the closet door. Soon it stops and the killer leaves. Marie exits the closet to a grisly, graphic murder scene. Mom's throat is cut almost to the back of her neck, like a Pez dispenser, and her hand has been completely severed at the wrist. She's dead. She's gone, thankfully, that she doesn't have to live through that nightmare any longer. Next, Marie tries to work the phone, but the phone doesn't work. Seems that there's either interference or the line has been cut. Next, we see Tom running down the hallway with the killer slowly walking behind him. You get this really sick, disturbing feeling. Knowing what he did to the other two parents, you know it's not going to end well for Tom. Marie makes her way into Alex's room to find her half naked and chained up. She hugs her, cries, and then asks her where there's a phone so she can call for help. Before she can leave, we see Tom screaming for his mom as he runs outside into the cornfield. The killer pulls a shotgun from out of the van and walks into the field after Tom. Soon we hear two gunshots. I'm very glad this death was off screen, because I don't think showing a graphic scene of a child being killed would have went over very well. Marie is trying to calm down Alex, but it's not working. So she runs downstairs to the phone when the killer re-enters the house. Maria hides and he goes back upstairs to grab Alex and place her into the large van. Marie grabs a knife from the kitchen but doesn't use it. Marie sneaks around the house and gets into the van in an attempt to help get Alex free of her binds. Every time Marie shows up, Alex starts to cry and sob again. The killer breaks open a photo of Alex and cuts her head out of the picture to take it with him. Marie prepares to attack the killer, but the killer never gets back into the back of the van. Instead, he slams the door closed and gets in the driver's seat. He drives away with the women in the back of the van, leaving behind a path of absolute destruction. This home invasion is probably the most graphic that I have ever seen. Normally, we don't get movies this graphic, but mind you, this is also around the time of Saw, Dawn of the Dead, Hostel. They were really ramping up the intensity in horror around this time. As they drive, Marie is still trying to free Alex from her chains. Alex lays down away from Marie, looking up at the roof of the van. She sobs as she sees that there is a lot of blood splatter covering the ceiling and the walls. They get to a gas station where the killer gets out to gas up this big, disgusting, shitty truck. This time allows Marie to escape undetected from the back of the van. When she gets out of the van, she's on the opposite side of our unsub. She begins making her way towards the store where she hears the gas pump stop. Everything goes quiet. All you hear is her heartbeat and her feet hitting the ground. So after the pump stops, so apparently in this part of, I believe, France, I believe that's where they were. I hope I'm getting that right. You pump first and then you go pay. That wouldn't happen here in the US because people would be stealing gas every day. But after this person pumped the gas, they were going to head inside to go pay for it. Now, once the pump stopped, they have to put the pump back. And that's the clock she was trying to beat to not be seen. It's a very, very intense scene of her, trying to cover that distance in a sprint while trying to be quiet, barefoot, running into a store. There's a lot going on. She makes a quick and quiet run to the store before our killer puts the pump away. Once in the store, she continues to hide. The clerk looks confused and kind of terrified, makes small talk with the killer. The store clerk keeps looking over while dealing with the killer. The store clerk goes to grab our killer a bottle of liquor, because apparently he has to unlock the door. And when he turns around, he gets hit in the chest with an axe. Marie runs to the men's bathroom to hide. The killer searches around the store, but finds no one. Marie seems relieved when he leaves the bathroom without finding her. Her celebration is cut short when she hears the truck start and depart without her. She gets on the phone to call for help, but she has a very poor description of the area. Because mind you, she has no idea where she is. She doesn't know that area. Alex knows where she is because Alex used to live there, and she doesn't really know how to describe where she is. After threatening to burn down the gas station, Maria takes the keys of the store clerk car and finds herself a gun under the counter. She catches up to them as the killer makes a turn, assuming he is going to wherever he lives. Marie follows him down a dark road in the woods, and he gets far enough ahead that she loses sight of the van for a moment. As she is looking around for him, he ends up popping up behind her some fucking how. And for the first time all movie, he's finally gotten the drop on her. He rams her car and causes her to drive faster. Eventually, because of how fucking dark it is, she loses control of the car and it flips over in the woods. She gets out with a big gash on her arm and she's limping. She hides in some bushes as he begins to look for her. He asks her why does she care so much about Alex. Of course she does not answer. She then finds a weapon. She pulls up a plank with a barbed wire wrapped around it. Marie then stands ready to go face to face with this killer. He sets a trap for her to catch her off guard, and it works. But for some reason, he plays with her instead of going in for the kill like he's done for the entire movie. So, this is where I begin to think that something is off. Our killer so far seems extremely brutal. He doesn't fuck around. If you are in his way of getting what he wants, you're going to die. Plain and simple, top of the morning to you, that's how he operates. But with Marie, he has her dead to rights. He can end it right now, but instead he decides to taunt her. She turns the table on him and begins bashing him in the head with the wooden stake that has the barbed wire on it. We get one last jump scare when we think he's dead. After killing the menace, Maria goes to the van to free Alex. Alex is terrified of her. Alex pulls the knife on her and starts screaming at Marie, saying, "You killed my whole family." Marie has no idea what she's talking about. Alex then stabs Marie and runs off. When she runs off and the camera goes back to Marie, we see the guy, the killer she had been hiding from the whole film. Turns out that it's actually Marie. Alex runs into the road and gets a car to stop. She jumps in the back of the car, yelling for the driver to take off. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if a beat up, bloody woman runs into the road and you happen to stop and she jumps in your vehicle and says, "Just fucking drive," I'm going to recommend that you just fucking drive, because people don't do that for no reason. They don't. Ask questions about 7 to 8 miles down the road. Just take off. Unless there's a car following you, just take off. This guy sits there like he doesn't know what to do instead of just fucking driving. By this time, Maria, the killer, Marie, now has a big ass circular saw. She jumps on the hood of the car and cuts through the windshield, slices the guy across his face and chest until he's dead. Everything in this scene is graphic. Everything here is just graphic and bloody as hell. Marie walks around the car, sawing through the window. Alex climbs through the windshield, and she ends up, this scene, even thinking about it just gives me little shivers. She has a huge piece of windshield glass stuck, like it like slid down her leg into her Achilles tendon, and she pulls it out very slowly. And they didn't spare any expense on these effects. It is a very rough scene to watch. This whole movie is rough. Okay, just know this is a rough movie. The effects don't look like shit. It doesn't look like some hogwash. These look like very realistic, graphic as hell scenes. So just be prepared if you ever are actually able to watch this movie. So Alex climbs through a window and gets a huge piece of glass stuck in her Achilles. The visual of her pulling it out is extremely graphic and disturbing. As Marie stands over her with the saw, she doesn't see that Alex has a crowbar in her hand. Marie keeps asking Alex if she loves her, And the more Alex says yes, the calmer Marie becomes until she starts making out with Alex. She's pretty much forcing herself on her. At this point, Alex stabs Marie in the chest shoulder area with the crowbar, causing Marie to pass out. We then flash back to the beginning scenes of Marie sitting on a hospital bed, covered in scars and singing to herself. Alex comes to visit her for whatever fucking reason, but she is on the other side of glass that kept her far away from the person who murdered her family. While Alex is talking to the doctor, Marie notices that she is there, and as she turns to look at her, she reaches out as if to hug Alex with a smile on her face. And that is how this movie ends. Ladies and gentlemen, that was high tension. If you are able to find it, see, I still own the DVD, so that's how I was able to watch it. I tried to look it up on a streaming service because you know I like to tell you guys where you can find this stuff, and it's currently unavailable. It was available for years. So maybe this being October, the closer we get to Halloween, the more available this movie will become. Ladies and gentlemen, High Tension is another highly recommended movie. This is not for the faint of heart. This movie is very rough on the visual. They don't pull punches, but it's well worth the watch. And ladies and gentlemen, once again, that is going to conclude today's show. I'd like to thank you. Oh, stop. I would like to thank all of you for being here with me today. I hope you enjoy these films. I hope you go out and you watch them. And ladies and gentlemen, I will be back at you with 2 more films next week. Stay up, y'all.